Hello everybody, and welcome to the September 2016 Gaming PC Builds of the Month, brought to you by noobcomputerbuild.com. It's been a little bit. I didn't post a video last month, but the builds were thrown out there on the site, so if you want to check those out, they're still there, but these are the refresh builds. These builds, for anyone new here, are basically encapsulate all gamers. So there's 3 here, and they'll encapsulate gamers from anywhere that want to max out HD, 1080p resolutions, 1440p, all the way even into 4K. If you wanted to dabble into that. So for the most part, these 3 builds will meet the needs of most 95% of gamers. So keep in mind what monitor you're going to use, resolution you want to play at, kind of frames per second you want to achieve, and what specific games you want to play. Well, what we're going to do is start with this $1,300 build and then work our way down to the $1,000 and $600 builds, and kind of I profile them as kind of the extreme high-end and 1080p builds. So the extreme one being anywhere from 1440p to 4K if you're aiming for games generally in those resolutions, or 1080p to 1440p for the $1,000 build, or 1080p for the $600 build. September's a good month for all releases. Prices have stabilized on the new graphics cards, and they are included in all of the builds below, including the alternative hardware that I suggest if you have a little more to spend on any one of the builds. But let's get started with the $1,300 build. I'm going to quickly go through the builds. If you want to learn more, visit the site noobcomputerbuild.com, and I will link the hardware in the description below. So quickly here, so $1,300. We have the processor, the 6600K i5 Intel, $238.03. This is pretty much all you need for gaming. It's overclockable, so tons of potential there. If you want to do more than gaming, such as streaming or video encoding and stuff like that, an i7 would be worth it. Otherwise, an i7 just is not worth it for just gaming at the moment. For a cooler to pair with that, we have the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo Air Cooler, $33.88. For the motherboard, we have the MSI Z170A Gaming Pro Carbon motherboard here, $169.99. And here is the main piece of hardware for this build, the main performance driver, the Asus GeForce GTX 1070 8GB card. This is a new card. You can bump it up to a 1080 if you have more to spend, but this will get you there. This is a high performing, well worth the cost, performance per dollar wise, $409.95. And this came out a couple months ago, so the prices have started to stabilize finally. RAM, 16GB kit of Ballistic Sport LT, $73.99. We have an SSD, a Samsung 850 EVO, 500GB, 158.55. If you want more storage, you can get the 1TB version, but it is quite a bit more expensive. Power supply, EVGA Supernova 750G2, 750 watt PSU, $104.99. And then to finish this build off, we have the Silverstone Technology Performance ATX Primera, $109.99. It's a relatively new case as well. And this build right now comes out to $1,297 at the beginning of September 2016. Should you have a little bit more cash to indulge into this build, here are some alternatives. I kind of put the total cost here, $1,860 if you did include all this instead of the hardware in the build. But without further ado, we have the CPU, the i7-6700K. If you do more than gaming, you could consider this. It's also overclockable. All you have to do is swap it with the 6600K if that's what you wanted to go with. You can bump it up to a GTX 1080 graphics card, such as this EVGA GeForce GTX 1080, $649.99. If you want a faster storage, faster as in this PCIe SSD, so the Samsung 950 Pro, is $300. It comes at a little bit of a premium, as you can see. Same amount of storage, but faster. $314.73. If you want a liquid CPU cooler, this is the one you could get here. This Corsair Hydro Series H100i V2 Extreme Performance one, $104.97. All right. So now we'll go with the $1,000 build. This is kind of the mid-range, not mid-range build, but the in-between build in the 3 builds that I include here. This is for people that want to max out anywhere from 1080p and play into 1440p. and depending on the games, max out at 1440p if you want. But keep in mind, this is for those types of gamers. Again, we have the processor, Intel i5-6600K, $238.03. The Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, $2872. And the motherboard here, we have this Gigabyte GA Z170X Gaming 3 board, only $134.99. And here is the exciting stuff for this build. The graphics card. We have a Sapphire Radeon RX 480 8GB one. This is also a new card, the new AMD card, $279.99. Likewise, and this is where it gets a little fuzzy of which you'll choose. The RX 480 does perform better than the GTX 1060 in some instances. So the other one suggested here is the Zotac GeForce GTX 1060 for $321.99. You could probably get it a little cheaper since the MRSP is $249. But what I would do if I were you, YouTube, Google, benchmarks, specific games that you want to play, and then you can narrow it down to which card you want to get. Otherwise, you could probably be good with either choice. RAM. We have a Kingston HyperX Fury Black 8GB kit, $39.99 DDR4 RAM kit. Samsung 850 EVO 250GB. This is half the storage size of the $1,300 build above, $92.99. Power supply, EVGA Supernova 650 G1, $79.27. And the case is a relatively newer Zalman case, the Zalman Z9 Neo. It comes in black as well. This is the white version, $66.84. And this build comes out to a total of $960.82. So we are under budget here. Moving down to some alternatives. You have a little more to spend on this build. You can bump up to a larger, faster SSD. This is the SanDisk Extreme Pro, 480GB SSD, $195.99. Bump up the graphics. Get a GTX 1070 if you want, $429.99, such as this Gigabyte GeForce GTX 1070. Want a better power supply? You can upgrade to a platinum efficiency power supply. This EVGA Supernova 650 watt P2, $99.99. And here's the liquid CPU cooler suggested for this build, the Corsair Hydro Series H80i GT. You would get this instead of the Hyper 212 Evo. So if you want to go with the liquid one instead, you go with this one. Now for the last build for these the September 2016 gaming PC builds of the month, we have this 1080p $600 build. This will max out games at 1080p no problem for the most part, and is a really affordable build for most gamers. This would be a great build if you're just getting into gaming PC building, for example, and you'd be able to still beat out those console gamers. But let's get started with the processor. This time we have the Intel Core i3 6100, $115.95. And then that comes with a stock cooler, so we don't have a cooler here. Motherboard, Gigabyte GA H170 D3H, $99.99. Graphics card here. We finally can include the new AMD card in this build, and it is very well priced and bumps up the performance of this particular $600 build quite significantly. We have the XFX Radeon RX 470, $209.99. With the RAM, Kingston HyperX Fury Black kit, a gigabyte kit of DDR4 RAM, $39.99. SSD, 120 gigabyte Kingston Digital, $44.99. Keep in mind it is only 120, so if you want to bump that up to a 256, for example, you just have to spend a little bit more. Power supply, EVGA 500 watt power supply here. W1 3701. And then the case, we have a Corsair Carbide Series 200R. It's been around for a bit. It's a good case though, $50.99. And this bill comes out to just about exactly $600, but we're at $601.65 at the beginning of September. As per usual with the other builds, we have an alternatives box here. So this bill could, if you got all this instead, would be $850, for example. Get a better CPU cooler if you like. Cooler Master Hyper 212, $28.72. I would suggest this if your build gets a little hot, but it'll probably be all right with the stock cooler. But if you do go with one that you can't overclock a CPU, for example, then that would be more suggested. But in this particular setup, you can't really do that. So if it gets a little hot, this would be my suggestion. CPU upgrade, you can get an i5 Intel Core i5 6500, $204.50. Bump up those graphics to an RX 480 for $299.99. Or like I said, there's only 128 gigabyte SSD included in the build. You can get this budget SSD, ADATA 480 gigabyte SSD, $112.99, which is, you know, about $60 more than the one included, and you get, you know, 4 times the space. So it would be a good investment if you want to bump up your space. And below here we have some operating system suggestions. I usually just throw this in the articles every month because there is no OS included in the builds, so always keep that in mind. Such as you can get Windows 8.1, 7, 10, up to you. Some free alternatives for OSs. You can get Ubuntu or even the Steam OS. Those are free. So yeah, until next month, come check us out, noobcomputerbuild.com. Visit the site, leave a comment, say hi, tell me a joke, doesn't matter. But you can visit the site or leave a comment below. And happy building.